2006. Deja vu. Deja vu. Deja vu. I gotta talk about deja vu. It's the Movie Club Movies podcast. Hashtag TMCMS.
Movie Club Movies.
Welcome back to TMCMS podcast, the Movie Club Movies. We've got a big episode ahead of us, and I'm going to stay on track safely by moving steady and swiftly ahead. Before we get to our feature, ELLE joins us to share her reviews of the new Twisters movie. We continue to cover this season's theme, toxic masculinity, and today's theme, natural disasters. Later on, we'll cover a movie that's a national tragedy of a natural disaster, starring everyone's favorite, DenzelWashington, who, last we saw, was at Michelle's game night in our recent episode, Game Night. Be sure to check that episode out. But for now, let's ask Elle.
I heard my name drop. Let's ask Elle.
Ask Elle.
So, what's up, Justin? Had some thoughts about the new Twisters. So I have seen the new, I can't tell you how many times I've seen the original one. I feel like it might be one of those movies where I've seen it once and a half or like one or two times. But really, honestly, I saw it as a kid once, but some movies you see as like once and they just make such an impact that it's like, yeah, it's been a couple decades since I saw the first one, but I still totally remember it. And I think, the opening scene, the cow, I think for me, just the technology when they show on the little soda cans. Well, I guess that's at the end, but just that whole technology of a tornado being from the West Coast and not having that kind of weather and just being like, oh my gosh, this happens to people. Shocking. Shocking. But I mean, that's how other people feel about earthquakes, which I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal. And then I think of years later when I did live in the Midwest for a little bit and hearing the tornado warning sign.
Oh yeah, for
being
sure.
so
Heard those
excited
sirens
and being like,
a lot.
it's like Twister. And everyone just being like, yeah.
Heard those before, yeah.
That they
for sure.
just do that. Most of the times it's just like testers and stuff. It's such an impactful movie. Loved everything about it. So then I seen this now recent reboot twice because two of my friends wanted to see it and our schedules did not align, so I saw it twice. And my take on it was that it was, it's a very good new movie, a reboot. I did not totally like it the first time I saw it because it is I'm a motion sensitive type person and I came poorly prepared. It did make me nauseous, even with the earplugs in, but the second time I timed my earplugs in for the loud parts and I didn't have to watch everything because I already knew what was happening. So I could just close my eyes and skip the motion sensitive parts. So the second time around, I liked it so much more. It's hard to enjoy something when you feel super nauseous, but I love action movies, so I just deal with it because it's worth it. But yeah, if you do have a motion sensitive friend or you are like, this is one for the earplugs, don't load up on your layers because your body might get hot. You'll need to do the thing. But yeah, come prepared. I liked the way that they didn't compete. This new one does not compete with the original one for who can redo the same scene better. They're definitely influenced, but if you've never seen the first one, it's totally fine. And they didn't repeat the iconic scenes. They were just really heavily leaning into it, which I thought was smart. I like that it's got the lead character still stepping into that this is a new version of me that I need to become in order to tame this tornado, survive the tornado. So I like that they kept that going. My roommate had a space for where an angle she thought maybe untapped. She was expecting multiple tornadoes. She was like, I thought there'd be at least 10 twisters really only applies to the twin twisters that occur, and they're not really dangerous. They're like cute little twins. And so she was expecting like level 5 tornadoes, like at least 10 of them, all a quarter mile apart. And you're just like, essentially Armageddon, and you're just like driving through these massive level storms. I don't know how it would work, but I have to say, as soon as she said it, I was like, well, yeah, now I wish I want that scene too. So I don't know how that could happen, but it would be great. And then I thought the romantic in me, because the original one does have that romance line. The thing is in the original one, they're exes when the movie starts. Bill Paxton, him and Helen Hunt, they are just like, take me back to the 90s. Two love interests, they've already had a previous relationship, and they're exes, and they're reconnecting in this movie. And he's like sort of moved on, but like they have unfinished business. So it ends in the Hollywood kiss scene, kind of, you know. But that's because they're adrenaline junkies who just survived a tornado, and also they totally had previous feelings for each other. With this one, very noticeably, there is no like Hollywood kiss romance. It's strongly like a chemistry is definitely well developed, but you know, nothing happens. Even though I did love the Wrangler, I thought he was so good. But I feel like maybe the romantic in me would have kind of preferred them to follow the original a little bit and put Kate with Javi, because they did have like this history, and they did kind of like have a survivor connection. It might have been a cool angle to put them together. Yeah, I like the new one, and I love seeing Katie O'Brien, very cool actor. Sasha Lane, who plays Lily, I recognized her from More Attorney, so great. And then Kierna Shipka, I did not. I only think of her as Sally from Mad Men, but it's cool to see her as other things. The 90s, and like having certain actors be, you know, very prominent at that time. Whereas with this new one, you know, for the most part, I don't think I've ever seen the lead actor from the Twisters, Daisy Edgar, I think is her name, Daisy Edgar Jones. I hadn't seen her in anything. And Glenn Powell, I've been seeing him around. But yeah, definitely not as familiar with this cast as I was in the 90s when the original came out.
Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks, as always, for your special contributions. We were talking about the new Twisters movie. The movie recently came out, and I think you got a chance to check it out. I was excited to hear what you thought about it. I had only seen the poster, and we agreed it was funny to see two Twisters on that poster. But how about the chase or characters you mentioned? Are they chasing two Twisters? Are they buddies?
So, to answer some of your questions, would there be more Twisters than just two? You know, plural. How many were we talking about? I did not expect there to be multiple Twisters, because I just didn't think that was possible. I wish we had a meteorologist that could be like, how many Twisters can touch down at the same time? I thought that having two at the same time would be like a challenge. But once my roommate pointed out that this was an opportunity to have like an abundance of Twisters, it got my mind going. I'm like, yeah, what would that be? How would that go? How many Twisters can you fit in a 5x5 mile radius? In this new one, they are very similar to the first one. They have the same objective. They are chasing tornadoes because they are trying to get Dorothy and the little sensors to go up into the tornado so that they can map out the wind structure of a tornado, better understand it, so that they can protect people in presumably Oklahoma. Kansas, Oklahoma, I think, reminded me of in Kentucky. I want to say like 4 years ago, there was like a massive tornado that I think was like one of the longest. I want to say it went for like, this can't be true, but like 50 miles or something. It was really long. So they're chasing tornadoes, trying to get the Dorothy sensors into the tornado. So that part is completely the same.
Like from the original movie, are they like buddies again? Are they chasing against rivals?
And they are rivals at first, but they are all like big, both teams in this new one that are chasing the tornadoes. They are, lovers of meteorology and understanding weather. They just have two different approaches. It's like the academic squares versus the hooligans, the wranglers who, want to just show up and play loud music and be crazy cowboys. I know another friend was irritated by the soundtrack that goes with the more cowboy crew. I am not a big country music person, so I don't know that I would have had a big reaction one way or the other, but some folks who were saying, oh, the country bits could have been, country music bits that were associated with the Wranglers could have been better, but like I said, that's not my area, so I don't know about that. And then I would say that in general, by the end, with the exception of the one bad guy, that everybody is buddies. They're competitive buddies, but they are buddies.
And did you notice Paul Scheer? He's at the airport somewhere as like a airport employee.
Loved the Paul Scheer cameo at the end. Was he like, buddy, you gotta get out of here. What's going on? I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I love this. So random. And also like, hell yeah, Paul Scheer. Anytime Paul Scheer wants to cameo, I love that. But massive shout out, R.I.P. Bill Paxton. So yeah, I love that.
Calls from around the rental store flooding in. Smash that message button. Today's episode is brought to you by Joanne Valinari's Pasta. Joanne Valinari's Pasta. Nothing is as magic as Joanne Valinari's Pasta. Hey, Joanne Valinari's Pasta could be found at any seafood shack down by the pier. We sell them by the boxes. 12 ounce, 16 ounce, 8 ounces. Except for fettuccine. We sell that only by the pound. Yes, find her in the rice, grains, and pasta aisle. So come on down to Joanne Valinari's and find her boxed up pastas anywhere on the seafood pier. Nothing is as magic as Joanne Valinari's Pasta. Nothing's as magical as Joanne Valinari's Pasta. All grocery stores on pier at the seaport. Now, back to our episode. Tonight's feature. From 2006, DEJAVU. It stars DenzelWashington. It's directed by Tony Scott. It's a banger. It's been out there. It's a movie I missed when it came out. It's a movie I missed when it was sort of popping off on rental and all of these things. I had to come full circle around to this over 2020 and even like well into 2022. I really hadn't watched this movie. I kind of didn't even really have it on my peripherals. Just kind of dawned on me. I hadn't seen it. It's something I always doppelgangered with another Denzel Washington movie called Out of Time. A movie Sleepless, 2017, starring Jamie Foxx. The poster looks like Denzel, B-sides to Equalizer poster concept. Movie stars Michelle Monaghan. Another movie, The Little Things, 2021, stars Denzel Washington, Natalie Morales, and Jared Leto. A double feature suggestion is Out of Time, like I said, a doppelganger. This movie, DEJAVU, is rated PG-13, which is surprising because I feel like this movie gets dark, explores dark ideas. I also think it may depict dark and gruesome violent actions. My library says there's 10 copies, and 9 are available on DVD and Blu-ray in my region of libraries. DenzelWashington becomes a Ghostbuster. Deja Vu 2006. Tony Scott. The writers are Bill Marzilli, Terry Roziero, the Pirates of the Caribbean series, a number of other blockbusters, mostly action-adventure, as well as Little Monsters from 1989 and Small Soldiers from 1998, in that order. Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire, 2024, is directed by Adam Wingard. So these guys have definitely had their hands in big-time blockbusters. I can kind of see the pattern that I kind of missed out on after like 1998, after the Independence Days era, where including Tony Scott with our selection tonight, and then the movies I just listed, including Godzilla and Kong, which is a movie still recent at the time of this recording, but is a massive formula-fulfilling blockbuster during the summer, during the early summer and spring, and there's several of those. That's a sequel. But that's interesting that this writing duo has also worked with the Pirates of the Caribbean. But most importantly, what's really drawing my attention, I'm sure a lot of my friends out there, Denzel Washington stars as federal agent Doug Carlin. He's also been in a movie, Fallen, from 1998, which TMCMS lightweight covered this classic during a quarantine 2020. It's worth a watch, and beware of cigarettes and cats in that one. Other movies that are notable for TMCMS, because you know this man, but let's just touch off on the ones that might sort of circle around in the movie clubs. John Q from 2002, Out of Time 2003, keep mentioning it. This movie is doppelganger for me. I smooshed their release together and missed a chunk of Denzel era. Carl Franklin also directed Devil in a Blue Dress 1995, one of my faves. Miniseries worth mentioning from the Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins. I Am the Night 2019, starring Chris Pine, and I suggest a letterbox search of some of what I just went through, just because Devil in a Blue Dress, great movie, stars Denzel, and I just mashed up sort of the makers are working with some other really fun content, Wonder Woman and I Am the Night. And personally, I think about that miniseries I Am the Night monthly. It was an interesting series. It was well done. Like I'm sure like everybody's talking about like Game of Thrones and Sopranos. It was well done enough that I just got sucked into this, something like 4 parts, maybe it was a little bit more, but I just think about it, and yeah, there was some poetry about what was going on, and it was sort of like, there were some fuck yous to the man in that series, so I think I just kind of think about it. Maybe the topics also, now that I think about it, but anyway, it's just something. And Chris Pine, anyway, I don't know. Hey, I just kind of talked myself into like, I definitely can see a booster shot of interest in Chris Pine, because that miniseries, he is really delivering, and I think he is making some decisions on that production also. Interesting one to check out. Didn't realize I was going to talk about it for 10 more minutes. ValKilmer stars in this movie as Agent Pryzawa, and it's always going to be an attempt like that. Agent Pryzawa. Pryzwarra. ValKilmer, known as somebody who's aware of the process, self-aware in the production. I just feel like I'm being played a trick on, so we're going to find ways to talk about his character. PaulaPatton as Claire Kuchever, and I kind of break down what PaulaPatton is up to as we talk about the movie, but she is definitely somebody we can't talk a lot about at the beginning because she's the main character, and there's a lot of stuff you want to find out with her. A star in this movie. Speaking of star, hey Bruce Greenwood as Jack McCready. He's from Disturbing Behavior, which has been a recent podcast rerun with Too Scary Didn't Watch, worth checking out, Passengers 57, Gerald's Game, Rambo First Blood, the contemporary series of Star Trek movies. I know him from The Post, I, Robot with Will Smith, Flight with Denzel Washington, National Treasure Book of Secrets. His first 5 movie titles on Letterboxd are as follows, and I'm getting to know this guy, and this was fun to see. Bear Isle, 1979. Rambo First Blood, 1982. Strikers Mountain, 1985. The Climb, 1986, as Herman Bull. The Malibu Bikini Shop as Todd. And that movie, I think, would be on channels like USA or, I don't know, Cinemax, HBO. But I really was trying to say, like, USA, like, We Hate Movies and Action Boys will talk about. Not only, like, TBS and TNT and stuff, but, like, sometimes USA would play, like, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Like a movie called The Malibu Bikini Shop. Something like that would be on randomly. Denzel's character has a sidekick friend in this movie. Well, he has a few, but he has a main buddy. And again, this movie is similar to Out of Time because he has a Belushi-ish sidekick buddy. Shay, played by John Billingsley. In this one, Deja Vu, it's Agent Donnelly, played by Mark Finney, who may be a writer or who has good luck and gets parts, because he is in what seems to be indie stuff and small background TV roles, before he's buddies working with alongside Denzel, well, sort of. In addition, we focus on Agent Doug's partner, Larry Minuti, another buddy. We focus on Agent Doug's partner, Larry Minuti, another buddy. I have various ways to catch some of these movies I'm suggesting, and I need to reference something usually when I take notes. If I miss a location, for instance, I will maybe find a TV listing, and some better ways to watch have been mentioned in past eps. But for this viewing, I went back to a TV recording because truly I had never known of this one. I may have sandwiched its release with others by Denzel, Tony, Bruckheimer, Mann, and Bays. I really have only found TV listings to watch, and that is fun for me. This has the ending to John Q, also by Denzel. And spoiler alert, this movie ends with a young man waving to a back-seated Denzel Washington. Robert Duvall has opened and closed his door, and DW is driven away down a street lined with onlookers. Deja Vu begins with joyful sailors and military types streaming from buses to a ferry boat. This is a New Orleans picture, and we are setting off from Canal Street, which is on the pier. The coverage of this first scenario is unparalleled. It's overdone and signature, slow motion captures of nostalgic idealism. On the ferry, there are also all kinds of other people, and we get a glimpse of a tourist or walk in the park, grandpa and granddaughter type of pair, sitting on benches. Before the movie gets dark, I had waves of a weekend at Bernie's, as Rich and Larry are on a party-going ferry of sorts on their way to Bernie's Hampton Isle. This ferry blows up. It's a boat that's taking commuters and tourists to another destination. There are cars and bikes parked below a seating area. I think hot cocoa is served somewhere also, and all around the boat it seems people can look out of the boat. Reference a Titanic, the size of bath soap. An ideal family of 3 is shown. A parking attendant checks out the cars, and a car that is a Bronco seems to have no license plates, and he begins to investigate along with us, and he is at the center of the blast. I'm sorry, this movie comes after a devastating natural disaster in New Orleans, and there is a serious wiki cram if you are unfamiliar with the happenings, and I may post a YouTube vid that easily makes sense of the importance of what happened. and the recovery. I want to move forward with celebrating the creative tool of support that is this movie and others we mention. The movie can feel dark, and the moment of this time period is also worthy of remarking. However, because this is a Tony Scott project, there is a muscle ramp up of euphoric crime solving and defensive parading that take over your popcorn smelling senses, not to offend with the darkness of the damages onion layering the region. This is another tragedy set against another tragedy. The white starchness of sailor lapels is replaced by darkened, smoky skies and waves of chaotic chop, and removal and recovery ready marine biology. DenzelWashington walks along the pier to close proximity, emergency station set up for the boat victims less than 50 yards away, in the water and such. Overhead are the shots from helicopters, first responders, and other service personnel, in the air and racing along the shifting waves below. Reminds me of Unstoppable, with most of the movie based around helicopter coverage. Denzel checks in, breezes through. At one point, he is examining bits of scrap and parts of scrap along the walkway, and gathered in along with dead fish on a shady shore with other scraps. He looks at blue tape. He looks at a blue tape looking material. He bags it for evidence. We follow his journey. He calls in to his buddy, Agent Connolly, to get some of the surveillance covering the bridge. He makes his way to the bridge, and forgive me, I am not going to be naming every location and structure such as this bridge. I'm talking about Crescent City Bridge in New Orleans. He is looking overhead. And I enjoy thinking about these structures, and structures like these, a bridge, and the patterns and textures made by the actual structure itself. The nuts and bolts of the whole thing, the metals, the bands of structure. He's looking up. He's looking at the bolts as far as I can describe. They are running along the underside of these large beams holding along the surface of the street above, and he notices smoky residue, a charcoal-like coating. He sees it clearer, gathering some on his fingertips, and these details are so crucially missed nowadays. Chapstick guy. We see two security personnel framed to the side of the movie, and the larger of the two gets a chapstick from his pocket and applies. And by this time, a standard black SUV rolls up alongside this pair, and ValKilmer gets out. Agent Prizawara. Val approaches Denzel and talks to him. Are you Larry Minuti? No, Larry's my partner. I'm Agent Doug. Lines like these are so funny to me. Doug tells Agent Prizawara that he's looking for anything that doesn't belong. JustinJustin cruises past on a bike. Prizawara follows Doug to investigate the charcoal-like substance. It's ammonium nitrate, which will burn off with the blast. However, with the rain, is said the only residue found would be, and Doug and Priz melodically say, under the bridge. Flea jumps by.
I have me a job. I have already been paid.
Okay, thanks, Flea from Woodorama.
Come on, McFlay. What are you, chicken?
I said all right, Flea from Back to the Future 2. A small circle of agents in blue are in a busy conference area, space, and seem to be in early stages of going forward with a plan, or ideas of what was going on. Interesting paint wash. Almost a clear moment of ineptitude. Doug approaches with his evidence, which is from blue barrels, and he mentions this would have held the explosives. They are all in agreement of the explosive, and he mentions there was a wire, and enough to find the manufacturer of the trigger and manufactured mechanisms. Ed Elkins introduces himself. I'm, in, charge, Denzel controls the conversation and has given them a good idea of where to start. He ends with, "Where's the coffee pot? He's in charge." Ed? Doug is dressed unassuming and ready to get dirty because he's wearing earth tones, mostly green, a long style coat that may be nylon blend, and matching blank green hat. I don't know, so that a stuntman can climb a bridge? The circle of agents were all wearing light dark blues, and Doug has some obvious contrast, if you didn't pick up on his dialogue. He's now outside in a city, walking along the caverned street into the ATF building, following up on his lead or going back to his office. He is, and this is where his buddy, our buddy, Agent Donnelly, has a video queued up as Doug enters, and here we see their friendship. 13 minutes. And as casually, but realistically, in the way Doug's office would be busy, his buddy hands him a wrapper with a number on it explaining a young woman called and left a message to have Doug call her back. And with locker guy talk, he is going on to tug that she asked if Doug was like tall and single. And the surveillance is playing with a motorcycle driver stopping along the top of the bridge and along the railing, just stopped. Donnelly replies to Doug his earnest question about, what is he doing? And Donnelly jokes, he's going to the bathroom? Denzel bursts out laughing at that quip, and Conley gets a Hall of Fame shot looking pleasantly surprised. Although it is concerning, Doug makes a note of the time, and we also note that this is right before the explosion. And Doug is notified that his partner Larry has called, along with Doug leaving a message on the unknown young women's answering machine. Another task is Doug will take a look at a body that has just been found from the wreckage. Busy, busy, busy. And we are casually distracted. Popcorn, popcorn, blowing them up. Bruce Greenwood fields the press. It was an act of terrorism and condolences to maximum casualties. I think this is a coded monologue referencing New Orleans' recent most natural disaster. All evidence is under 100 feet of muddy water. 543 people dead. That sounds like the titles of a blues song if I've ever heard of one. I've got 100 feet, go on singing the blues. I got 100 feet, and they all stink. Go on singing the blues. I got 100 feet, and they all stink. Go on singing the blues. Muddy water. Why are we examining her? This woman, this victim. Why her? Do we know? Okay, here we find out with one phone call from another. Guy on the phone, Bob. He is requesting Doug come to examine the body of a young woman that was found face down at Algiers Point at 10:42 a.m. Not 11:42 a.m. He is wearing his reading glasses. These scenes add up and are making me laugh, and I'm wanting to share with the movie club that these are the roles and details that catch my attention because this is an actor we only see here, and I applaud if this is all about hiring from local talent, which I think it is. I can easily accept that, but it also is like a filler with the detail of a face down found by kids, and he doesn't let Doug antagonize by saying out in front, I have my reading glasses on. We haven't really heard that Doug works with these offices in the past. All I can throw down is that this is writing that has grown from film noir, gritty macho crime drama, and investigative genres, like are popular even now with Reachers and such. Also, crime scene investigators have been and gone already, which surprises Doug. Thanks, Bob. Here is a just prediction. Don't hate me if it's a spoiler, but is ValKilmer's controlling some things so that Doug reconnects for the rest of the adventure because the last detail about her body already being investigated seems speedy. Or am I overthinking right now that maybe there are too many victims, so the team is like, check, check, check. Yes, these people are all dead. Okay, anyways. No, I do think that there's some truth to that ValKilmer may be fast forwarding the investigating so that he can get Doug or his own team in there investigating. And also, I think sharing along with there are a lot of victims in here, and they are just like, check, check. Yes, we can confirm. They're still dead. Doug is riding a sunlit trolley. Donnelly has told us it helps Doug think. It's a part of his process. And I see the spirit of his city. Trigger warning for Autopsy. Trigger warning for Autopsy. We now meet PaulaPatton as Claire Kuchever. She is laying on a steel table. Her clothes and makeup are intact, and she's full of warm blood because she's not pale at all. In fact, Tony Scott is pumping heat into these and all scenes. The tables seem colder. So this is a good sign. Maybe she ate and then went swimming. That's all. But her makeup and dress are intact and clean. Well done, Tony, on the special effects. And a live cadaver in a Hollywood movie. What will AI think next? Humans on stages? All duds today. Claire gets a thorough examination, and she has been badly burned, and her ears are charred. And really it looks like leveled up consumer makeup, like Lady Gaga getting hot dogs in NYC or JoJo 2024. Doug is getting emotional, and he's holding that internally. This is what makes Denzel one of the greats. Our examiner is providing more gruesome detail as he smokes, and then has Doug hold her hand, and I think we are told she has lost some of her fingers from the events. Burns and attack, of course. While he takes a Polaroid photo and the photo falls, Doug places them right on the table. Doug then places his finger gently on Claire's lip, and we see zoomed in detail of a sticky substance. Very cool scene. PaulaPatton, I am assuming, is there on set, most likely on this table as the body, because Claire looks like this is the actress rather than a dummy or some effect. But I am spotlighting this because Denzel gets a UV light and we get a dark and purple black light effect, and Denzel's eyes look huge. And I don't know, we just get this interesting scene lighting effect. I would only add creatively, the choice of a smoking examiner only goes as far as the actor doing it. I'm sure this was super unappealing to the actors, acting still on a stiff metal table. So to take the opportunity of further evidence of Claire's and other victims' journeys, finding out Claire had tape across her mouth, and we know this now because of the UV effect. Okay, thanks JustinJustin. Claire is clandestinely connected to Doug, and casting a naturally beautiful actress like PaulaPatton is possibly key to us, the audience, receiving those vibes. But Denzel is keeping it sharp as it gets. Give PaulaPatton a moment of applause because I don't think she's a dummy. She's more, and more than just a stunning model. Buddy Donnelly calls in. He's eating a sandwich, so we've got a character choice flying all over these bits. Doug is at Claire's father's house. Her father greets Doug at his house, mentioning he needs a photo for his investigation. Doug doesn't reply, but I take it as a reasonable greeting for the circumstances. Claire was planning to meet her father, and her father noticed she was a no-show. Doug is interviewing her father, played by Enrique Castillo. Claire broke off an engagement to a guy named Alan. They were selling a car, which is mentioned a few times in passing, we will hear about it. She had a date planned by her friend Beth. Claire babysits her daughter, Abby. Doug is welcoming and caring, and Enrique passes along a few pictures of Claire and says his daughter has to matter to Doug. Doug, with a slight nod, accepts that she matters. Black Lives Matters. He crosses a really cool street and goes past a ornate gate, and met by a cat, he pours some water and cat food and continues looking. Oh, is this her house? Is he going inside? Is it because he found her keys on her? Oh, I think her father handed him keys. He looks around. You can save her is written in magnets, letters on the fridge. Magnets on fridges comes up plenty on the movies we cover on this podcast. Magnets on fridges. 94 Bronco two-tone. Sorry, that was circled in red. He sees blood on the floor, and then he sees blood on the floor. He follows the house until he sees an answering machine. Bloody bandages are in the wastebasket. I'm trying to follow all these clues we get. Her house, her apartment, her flat, I don't know, is very charming and has massive amounts of personality. There are things everywhere that are ornate or charm-like. Also, books and cooking utensils, just like most competent, enriching personalities. The walls are both calm and crackled. On one side of her doorway is not the best mural, but an acceptable effort of a Louis Armstrong-style jazz performer, if not the actual king himself. We don't spend a bunch of screen time on her stuff, though. The answering machine gets Doug's focus. The answering machine says her dad reminds her of his flight Monday evening. Tuesday, he's called asking where she is. Her friend Beth has called and noted she had not heard from her as planned. It sounds like Claire jumps onto the call and asks if this is a joke. I have someone here. I have to go. Someone's here. Agent Doug, who is in the room, doesn't seem to notice. Was it an ex-boyfriend? Following, we hear a phone call that does not leave a message, which gives a really nice bit of suspense for the next message from Agent Doug, who also is in the room right now. He looks up from inspecting a gun on the counter, and we had already seen a glowing spring green dress hanging in her closet, ready from the dry cleaners, bagged and tagged. Doug's message. Yeah, this is Agent Doug Carlin returning your call. Give me a call back at 555-0130. This is at 1:18 p.m. It is the same phone number on his candy wrapper from Donley. Remember that? They brush past quick during the real-time scene, and it's a doozy to hear it and see it come together on screen. Fun stuff. ValKilmer is back at base, and Scott has some rad helicopters hovering nearby as Denzel communicates. Doug heads to their table to communicate the autopsy of Claire, and that her time of death and time of finding doesn't match up to the bombing, which Greenwood, Jack McCready, and his team that we will meet in a minute is behind him and responding. She died before? Before? Doug believes Claire was taken, taped, and tied, and tossed into the river, headed towards Mardi Gras, so as to look just like another disaster victim. Just another victim, kid. The PETN tells us that the bomber came in direct contact with the victim. You solve her case, you solve this case. There you go, ladies. Doug is solving cases for you. What woman wouldn't want her case solved by a character played by Denzel? Another doughy guy at a desk asks, "Why this woman?" Pause for intended laughter, because he just explained with 4 phrases that the bomber is connected directly to this woman. 1. This woman was found nearby the bombie. Remarkable. 2. You solve her case, you solve this case. 3 and 4 now. Is this Saving Private Ryan, or is this Ghostbusters 84? I will make this statement in defense if her death doesn't lead to the criminal behind it. Then it's going to be a big step forward in the very least. High five. Where is the coffee pot? There's more. Her Bronco truck was missing. This is the car shared with her ex, Alan. Doug adds it could have been used to transport the bomb onto the ferry, almost as if Doug was watching Tony's opening shots. 6. One more thing. She called an ATF office in the morning of the bombing. McCready, we'll look into it. The videotape screen skips a little. My screen paused on oh, lol. Okay, alright, okay. Doug is like Lonely Island vibe when he deals with authority. He's framed as lone wolf in this movie. And being a lone wolf myself, I recognize and respect the vibe. Also, he's got a team behind him, eating sandwiches and driving cars. As Doug leaves the area, as he walks, he sees a car that belongs to his partner friend, Larry Minuti, and asks around if he's here. McCready has to inform him that those are impounded cars from the ferry parking, leading to his partner may be one of the victims. Unknown to Doug, Doug is speechless and leaves again. Val and Greenwood check in that he's a good guy. Doug was Marine. I'm going to explain using the word from the New Orleans area, but has lost all of his family. Interesting detail. And the 2 colleagues agree. I like him. Okay. And Val consoles Doug for a moment, lol, because he then reintroduces himself, formally mentioning that he's heading up a newly formed unit of the Ghostbusters. No. He is, though, explaining that this is their first case. And Doug asks some reasonable questions, which I can sum up as he can look at the crime scene and instantly know what can be ignored, what doesn't belong, and what can be focused on, pivoted from. He also knows the area, knows the people. And it's his shot. He wants to find out who killed Larry. Oh my gosh, Red Dust Larry. We've got another Larry in this movie. No Regina. Yes, he does. And we are driven to a goal. Oh, yes, he does. And we are driven to a gold-lit lens flare lighting in SUVs to the HQ for busting ghosts. No, just. Not for really. Yes, for really. Just is here to believe you. So flippy floppies, walkie-talkies, here is the mystery we are trying to solve. Who bombed the ferry and why? Of course, if we follow the info from Claire as a victim, we can find a lead to that priority. And as an audience, we can also consider Doug's partner Larry and what he was doing there at that time. Ready to meet the team that can do this? Adam Goldberg as Denny. I know him from the Friends episodes he was on playing a terrible roommate, and he is pretty scary and realistically uncomfortable. LOL. He is in a handful of other things out there if you search. I think How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days as a buddy of McConaughey. Erica Alexander as Shantai. Shantai? She is in Get Out as a detective and also in a bunch of other things. And a guy named Gunnar, who is not the most problematic cast member. Okay, Doug is thrown to these wolves, supported by Prisware and McCready. A screen is shown in front of a series of table-based workstations. Those stations are run by our aforementioned team, and Denny is directing. Think of Jack Black and Seth Green in Will Smith's Enemy of the State, which came out 8 years before this. A tech team of wisecracking nobodies seizing control of the movie screen as only these Bruckheimer-Spielberg blockbuster things can portray. Denny has asked Doug to jump in at any time, and Doug is slightly off his bearings as the camera turns around a ferry, and Doug is told, "This is from 4 days ago. We are looking for suspects, anything out of the ordinary that can help solve this case." The system is called Snow White. It's based off of 7 orbiting satellites. They are surveying 4 at a time to any one area. And this data is pooling from them to provide this camera shots. Fast and Furious borrowed from this in a way to get the shared device and cam shot concept. And was that in like number 7 or 8, where anywhere on the street they're able to pull a camera shot because of someone walking with a phone or a security camera or a phone that's pointed? Anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. That's the kind of concept they're coming up with here. Except it's a little bit more magical, and it is always 4 days and 6 hours ago, because it takes that long to process a fluid shot. So it's like weaving loom or making fettuccine pasta. Parts are streaming together as one. And he has asked the 7 dwarves here how they get the sound, which they are not answering at the moment. And I don't know if we ever get an answer. Denny is a real wise ass, and Shantai is drawn as a utility because her shots are just giggling at dumb jokes and looking to her team, and these parts are lackluster and difficult to compare, but the jerky style of Green and Black and Hackman's Enemy outperforms this group. Doug understands about as much as us, the audience. He confirms to Denny that in a few days he will be able to see the suspect before the bombing. We need to know where to find out where he will be. Goldberg does this slight pause, almost silent sneeze before adding, "Or we might miss him." Where should we look, Agent Doug? I feel like this movie at times can have that bong bong from that TV series. Bong bong. Claire's house. Claire's residence. They are able to zoom over and through her walls, which gets the room up and exposition. This technology was used in Iraq for those considering purchasing an infrared system yourself. And we can see Claire, she doesn't see us. She is getting our AI gaze, or really, it's a room full of ghost-busting males, if not for Shanty. So stairway technicians of wall lurking almost reminds me of Frighteners. Doug held Claire's hand once, but he does not know her. She screens an answering machine call from Alan, and this number on caller ID can be seen by our magic lenses, and Doug makes sure to note to Val to write it down. Claire is in a bra and pants, of course, because we gotta fill that TNA quota. Our team is flicking switches, turning knobs, and Gunner's joysticks are getting the majority of screen time, as if these are crucial controls to turning in our space and finding the subjects to stream. Claire stares off in the distance as if looking or caring about Doug, which to Claire is unbelievable. To Doug and Room, it's extraordinary. As she listens to her ex leave a message about selling the Bronco, and needing the money, he's on the better side of things in Montreal and sees a way that he could make it work, but pipes in, "I need the money from the truck." So I think Claire is open and vulnerably emotionally, and also has a sense of spirit and hope for more, and Doug's spirit for a magically spirited city is meeting forces. And there is just this silent moment that Doug is having with Claire, and that the camera or what's on screen is making us feel that Claire is like sensing Doug or sensing a spirit out there, a guardian angel. But we also get that science is at hand and that we are looking at her from afar. She can't possibly sense us, but what she is listening to is a message from her ex, which he's saying logical things. He's not really saying mindful things, but he's not being an outright terrible person. He just is showing interest in her, but also is maybe showing more interest in, he needs the money from this transaction they're sharing. And she's thinking to herself, unbelievable. Denzel watches as she enters her space and a screen illuminates, subject borders and icons, some info of something we are seeing. Like I said, those digicamera mapping squares and specks are on the screen following our views and informing the tweakers on the sides of the theater rows. Doug has received a call from a patrol officer that Claire's residence continues to be clear and that he's not seeing anything out of place, while Claire on screen is answering her own phone, on her own timeline, 4 days ago. Patrolman confirms Claire is not in her residence, and agents are there investigating. And this is that Doug quickly is just making connection with a patrolman that's at Claire's residence because they still are investigating. And people are there, busy in her drawers, and a patrolman is just walking in to confirm with Doug. Yeah, no one's in here except for authorities. And it's just to, like, I guess, confirm to the skeptics out there in the audience that, like, no, whatever this is, Doug is in this room reviewing something from the past or what have you, but it's not happening right now at Claire's. So we can confirm this is not happening at real time. We can start maybe believing that this is happening in the past or whatever Val's team is concluding for us. But that Doug just had a patrolman check is one thing we're seeing. Doug seems to stick with it. Claire gets a call from Beth asking about meeting for a date with an unknown guy. And although Claire rejects the idea at first, she accepts and writes down info we cannot see fast enough from the other sides. And Val informs us this stream cannot be contained by any storage or containment system. Interesting ghostbusterness. Shantai gets a shout out to any scientific or forensic reason to spy on Claire in the shower. So we get some ethical resolve before all the paperback readers get out of hand. We can record, but we cannot rewind, and the subject cannot see us, as confirmed by ValKilmer. But as soon as we carry on to checking out Claire's kitchen, she pops out of the shower, looking towards the door to see if anyone is there. But it is just her reclining cat. And it's like a big cat. It's like a big shaggy cat. Or just the digital camera effect is just making this cat look like a big Muppet cat. And I'm not sold that she cannot see us, because her cat was chilling. And it was our team making the most chitter chatter. Denny and Val catch eyes. Is there some things these tech are not telling us? Doug declares, let's check the perimeter. Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner look on, which makes this a Carl Reiner Mel Brooks movie selection. If you have seen them on Seinfeld Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, they mention meeting to watch a movie for all these years, which we get to join during the show. And when asked what kind of movies they watch, they reply, the ones where check the perimeter is said. LOL, classic. Claire writes in her journal, I got that weird feeling I'm being watched. Above her recent statement is a red-starred journal entry stating, going to high school with someone. What? She hasn't written in her journal in like 6 years. She's a grown woman. She gets the revolver we saw earlier from her nightstand and places it under her pillow. It's big and sturdy. She is small and model-esque. Kinda 80s creeper horror shot. She is seen the next day praying before eating, and we can scan into her funeral, where Doug questions why her ex hadn't shown up. So we were watching what I could call video of what she was really up to in the past, but Doug had to run an errand. He had to be at her funeral, and he's scoping things out there. And like the Action Boys and so many other podcasts, Doug is clocking who's there, what the goings on of the funeral quietly. And he questions why her ex hadn't shown. And our round-faced buddy says, "Would you?" "Ah, yes, except that we know this guy is a dirtball." I'm calling some people out. Or at least we get a sense of him. Claire's father mentions her love of music and says a nice farewell. Doug notices the count of drivers. At one point there was 5 people gathered that seem like drivers, I guess, and Doug notices 4 limos leave the cemetery. He was here. We're talking about the suspect that we don't know who that is yet. Next, they're on the screen, headed to the Palace restaurant, where we are told they have good food there. These lines from this room are stinkers, and it's not Bruce Greenwood. They scan into a dinner party or dinner restaurant. This is 4 filling a room with purely digital bodies in order to perform a camera effect. So Tony Scott shot a scene with, 40 extras in a dinner room while she answers her phone, Claire that is, and we zoom down to like die-hard air duct fire of fire and lights because the room is just gold lit and it's like a restaurant or sort of venue, and Claire is there. She seems to know a group of people, and we just get this whirlwind of the room, and Claire comes out of the actual building to take a phone call. And that's it. That's all we shot that for. Her phone goes off, and it's a potential buyer for the shared Bronco truck. And she heads outside, giving her team some time to find the location of the caller, as Claire gives up her residential location while Doug cautiously watches, not liking the chain of events. Basically, he was waiting for her. The caller is self-informed, killer tone, mentioning he is a motivated buyer, and her availability is not matching up with his, of course, and Doug is observing everything. Sorry, there is like a little bit of a scream voice on the other end. Claire, I'm a motivated buyer. I don't know, just a little bit. Little bits of things here and there. Shanti finds the phone just out of range on Bourbon Street. Denny mentions he could view using goggles, and our screen shows a primitive 3D scan of a proton pack. I mean a backpack and headgear, almost subliminally. Yeah, there's just a quick shot of some other equipment we haven't used yet. And here we are informed that it works as a tether, so we're explaining this headgear. But this is all really quick. It's almost surprising, especially now that I've written notes and watched this like 2 thorough times, is that they do show this equipment and then they do quickly explain the equipment. And I gotta be honest, guys, as an audience member, I'm not like putting that together. I was like, okay, are we talking about Claire? Are we talking about the Bronco? Like, I'm like, what? I guess we're backtracking if it, from my perspective. But to be honest, I'm not being that critical. I'm just following along, and it is kind of a goofy ride here, just for this moment. We are informed that it works like a tether, almost umbilical way of getting data by staying attached to the network range we are staying in. which is like a radial range from our ferry location outward. So we're only able to use this snow white for an amount of range. And we've seen that on the screen, and we're also working with this equipment and quickly explaining that that would allow you to go further, and possibly like you could get out of the car and walk outside of that range with these goggles and backpack. But we're not there yet, and we'll get there. But you'll have to tell me what you guys thought about this Ghostbuster proton pack later on in the movie. However, for now, we are definitely focused on who made that phone call and where. And Shanti has been working to get that connected, patched in. There are rules being said around every move we make, including that equipment. And this one is we can access anything accessible by the feds. And we see the phone booth in question, surrounded by camera icons. Okay, I have a screenshot of this image, and I'm laughing because I'm writing this, within this reasonable range of the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef and the songs Kendrick Lamar has put out. And one of those tracks, maybe the most popular, the album of that is a mansion with icons, so to say that that's happening at the mansion. And I'm not going to get into all that filth here. I'm a real big fan of Kendrick Lamar, and I really like this spark of creativity and a lot of the truths and the incredible masterworks of expressing all of that. But this album cover also played into this moment. These camera icons are all pointing to this phone booth. It's basically like, in terms of the way I'm going to put this, it's suspect. The album cover with the sus avatars over Drake's Google Earth mansion. Deja Vu is simple cam icons and Tony Scott's digital scatter effect, showing us the options for a stream. We can get another booth shooting to behind our caller on the ground to his side. It's like that's the angle we're seeing. Another phone booth has a camera, and it's sort of shooting up at the camera booth we want to see to the side, and there is a bag, his bag. And now Doug is surfing with the rest of the team, doing his own patching by requesting face recognition be used on the subject's bag. Bag alert. New bag alert. Across the south side of the city, where I guess the ferry event would be located, and instantly we all get on board the idea that this will face match the bag with other instances of a bag being somewhere else in the databanks of the 48 hours leading up to the bombing. Is anyone waiting on a DoorDash right now? I mean, what are we doing? Bag alert, new bag alert. Bag alert, new bag alert. I just banged my head. Facial recognition on an old bag. I don't think it's ever been used in this way before. Doug. Well, we got nowhere else to go. And this, to me, is another indication this movie is having fun on itself, which is spice used by the Ghostbusters movie. Okay, just, we get it. You think Denzel becomes a Ghostbuster in this movie. Just saying. Did Tony Scott direct the best Ghostbusters sequel? Get at me, podcasters, walkie-talkies. Smash that voice message button. Leave a reply in the comments. Graphics on screen almost look like a comparison side by side on any online shop of two medieval looking bags. And it's matching all these digital shapes. And it matches. And the screen goes right to a shadowed figure, of course, looks similar to the caller at the phone booth. And he's walking in what looks like pouring rain. At a pier, Dennis Nedry calls from the JP-93. I'm comparing, it looks like the pier in Jurassic Park that Dennis Nedry calls. This is Nedry, and just calling the pier there. Did you get my DoorDash? I had a bag alert, and I was in the mood for something salty. I was eating something sweet earlier, and my DoorDash arrived. Did you at the pier? Did you accept fast food? Well, you could buzz up over at the Dennis Nedry and the fences department. Just let me know when the DoorDash arrives. Denny, our director, calls out that we are 2 days ago and 7 hours away. 7 hours away from patching this into the mainstream. This gets even more complicated. Was this movie received as easy to watch during its release? This movie could definitely be a focus group for Inception or Tenet. Claire is at Beth's house babysitting, and before we get to that, that was like wild. I was on one, but we just see that this bag matches. It matches that bag at where it was, which was this guy walking in the rain, and I think he's at the pier where the bombing happens in this shot. And I will admit, it gets choppy about where we're at and all of this stuff, and if you cannot make out everybody in that room, all the Goonies, it's tough to make out. So that's where I'm at with that. We're now with Claire at Beth's house babysitting, and as we're watching her do this, our team is in the room working, and of course that is what we see on the screen when I've mentioned the two sides going at it. So that's where we're at now, after tracking down that medieval bag. And our team has had a chance to relay some specs and a downshift in the adrenalizing energy. Doug notices he has a chance to answer a question he has and grabs his own laser pointer. So this is like a little bit of a down point. Guys are working, but everybody's just calmed down and is just maintaining their own self-studies. The room is sort of dim lighting, and we're with Doug, Denzel, just doing chill and doesn't want to make for anyone's attention. He grabs his own laser pointer. Do you know what the laser pointer, everybody remember a laser pointer? This is just another magic, fun moment of quirkiness. He shines a laser dot onto the screen, which shows us as going into the room, the bedroom of Claire. So the laser dot is hitting the screen that's in our world with Val and Denzel. But that dot is actually going into Claire's bedroom. In her reality, Claire and the child she is babysitting, who is actually Elle Fanning, the actress, in an early role for her, Claire breathlessly shouts, loudly gasps. She and Elle Fanning see the laser dot against the wall. That explain the time concepts. We get an extensive dialogue, almost argument, of Denny has his team explaining how all of this is working thus far. As I will add, we and Doug could be reasonably confused by what's going on because bricks are being added as we go, causing us to miss info or be lagged. But that's all been understandable, so Denny explains with the help of Shanti playing a human PowerPoint role. And I didn't even mention that when he shines the laser dot and Claire gasps, like all of the lights in the room go out and there's a lot of franticness. It's like the power shuts down and all of this oddness happens. And then like Doug's shouting like, how did I do that? I just shone a light into her room. How did I do that? Like he's really like, get your ducks in order. How am I doing this? What is really going on here? And Shanti has this large legal pad, and I think she does this a couple times, where she goes to it and is like, look, if you cross the beams here, then what happens in 1984 doesn't really happen in 1984. I don't want to mess you up with that joke, but she's just sort of playing it down for us. in her own adrenalizing sort of explanation and exposition. One idea being shown on screen is that we live a forward-moving straight line in time about the thickness of a Sharpie marker. If you could pinch or bend our time into a time event from the past, as we see with Claire's past on screen, and although Denny and his team are professional technicians, thorough and detail-centric, they are scientific, and Doug gets frustrated to a peak, and his response is to Denzel growl, "I said explain it, not talk science," and that's off-putting. It's wild, but we're trying to keep tension, and also I think we're trying to distract so you don't really pay attention, because Denzel is upset, and it's like, I don't know, this character would be like understanding. I think this character would be really understanding. I think, however, with time, it's like, tell me what is up. Should I go to her house and look through her drawers and pull out phone numbers? Like, can we do that? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I think he just needs to know, like, can we find this man by going up to this guy's house? Anyway, just direct things. And we get a heightened exposition and questions of scenarios. Quickly, I want to say that this is fairly realistic and also well written in terms of the production credentials working on it, so this causes a distraction. If you are amped up on the uppers and can follow the dialogue, you could clearly understand the Hollywood theory. If you pause and rewind enough, that could also help, but ultimately, the cut of Tony Scott's movie quality is also one not to be overanalyzed and on an indie podcast. So let's get sensational and believe the hype. It's time travel for ghosts. Okay, Justin, it is. That. This is how I explain how the laser hits the screen. In just this section of notes, I have some info. Quoting someone in the room, she responded to it 4.5 days ago. He shines a laser onto a large screen in this workstation. At times, I didn't know if it's a projection coming from a digital player, or hey, it's a large monitor playing the stream in sound. And Doug shines a laser onto the screen, okay? So this screen is as magic as Joanne Valinari's pasta? Because I have more issues with that than any time travel formula. Yeah, and I'm just saying, I'm gonna have fun with this, but that one point, is it a projection of how things are going down, or is it a hardwired monitor streaming to us the data it knows? It's not interactive. I'm thinking the projection of something would be more interactive, would allow for you to interact. But you couldn't make a bird sign with your hand on the projection, and Elle Fanning and Claire are going to see that as a shadow puppet on the wall. Okay? Not even Denzel Washington can make that happen. So let's have fun with it. Let's get sensational and believe the hype. It's time travel for ghosts. This team also makes mention that they were started with a grant wanting to research bursts of energy elements to optimize satellite telescopes. And they came across this sort of creation of maybe some sort of energy burst for time recording. Again, I want to suggest watching this movie if you are dying to hear all the specs. Our smashing moment is Doug smashed a monitor to emphasize Claire is dead. Now she is dead like the monitor, or is she alive? You just smashed a monitor that was severely close to Claire's face as she falls asleep onto the next monitor. Doug, take it easy. That's our smashing moment. After all this happens, he just goes up to a monitor and smashes it and is like, okay, is she dead? Or is it like this monitor? Is she dead? This scene is mixing up some similar movies, Truman Show and Age of Extinction. in which TJ Miller is loaded with the responsibility of blockbuster movie comic relief, and Gerard Carmichael takes this on in Last Night. And that Bay, this is Tony Scott's Denny, seems to be pedestrian in that role. His jokes are worse than Leno on a Friday, and Gunner is included in an explanation that they were the cause of a recent blackout in the northern part of Northern America. And this is so transparent, glossy, lost substance. No content. And I'm sure dude was at screening like, that's me. Doug is erupting with frustration. The dialogue at times is hokey and predictive. Denny and Val seem to be improving with Doug, but in my opinion, fall out of sync because Val keeps saying no. Denny seems radical at points. He's the jokester, so that usually a loose thinker rather than the constricted director. Should Jordan Peele have made this role pop? I don't think I'm off track for '06. I don't know that Age of Extinction would have been any better of a fit. And Denny is like negotiating what Doug can do, and Doug gets the compromise to be sending a warning note to his office, a piece of paper, a single sheet, wanting to send a note. So I am explaining like the loose improv here, but this leads to that Doug is like, how about, can I send a note? Because he's trying to understand the science, and there's a lot of no, no, no's. No, 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 you cannot do that. So he finally gets in there with, what about a single sheet of paper? Sending the note, we just go right to it. Love it, but they have this massive thing built. It's about the size of the vault door from Tron, and 2 picture frame sized thick plexiglass mechanically hold the paper in place, and the air is sucked out. And it's in the transpo containment unit, sort of a Total Recall or Watchmen vibes also. Not The Fly though, but they put this paper in that. It holds it, and then we just get this dramatic, it has sort of like a holographic color effect on the paper, and it gets sent to his desk, Doug's desk, which his buddy Larry Minuti is in this office, and we see this color thing just appear, and the workstation is very dramatic. Oh, there it goes. Okay, it's there. That type of thing is happening. So it is on this desk. Denzel is stoked, and Larry picks up the note, not Doug, because they were talking and they didn't know if the note would appear before Doug left the office after they're done talking, which he did. He left without looking at his desk, and the note was there. The paper note transports and looks holographic with the rainbow spectrum winding on the silver screen. And it's similar to Marty's kid's holographic material hat in Back to the Future 2. But Larry picks up the note, and following Larry, Doug looks worried. When Claire was on screen a few beats back, she was in a room with 2 lamps, and of course they were beam warm golden glow, and Tony Scott is using that to light the workspace. And I mean, it's coming off the screen, off of Claire's screen, which is smart as we get more involved as a complete group working to save Claire, and she is like in the room. Again, is she alive or dead? Like those lamps. Would Kubrick approve of lighting a set with what your lamps are gooning? The glow of lamps live streaming off of the gram? It's like she's on screen in this screen from the past, and she just has these glowing lamps. It looks great. And that is lighting the workstation with Denny and Doug, and it's kind of poetic. It's like the team is kind of coming together, and also we're here to save Claire. Doug wants to be all in, so it's kind of inclusive to be like, yeah, she's here. You know what I mean? Her spirit is like lighting our way. I mean, among other poetic stuff you could apply to this, just even technically, her lamps are lighting their room in terms of the way we're seeing it cinematically. In this current scene, Denny and the team are speaking loudly and with intention, as well as arguing in the vibe. And on screen, Doug's office Doug is brotherly, arguing about using Doug's hunches as a tool in solving their cases. Remember, they are partners. And again, on screen, they're seeing Doug because the note was there, and Doug was kind of arguing with Larry Minuti before he left the office, and now we've got Larry picking up the note and leaving. There was an argument, and I'm calling it a brotherly arguing because that's what it was. At one point, Doug mentions to Val that they would argue sometimes. Doug and Larry are getting loud in the background of the workstation chaos. I love creative opportunities, like this is a simple plan of layering and it's heightened scene. When I would write stories as a teenager, I would write up notes about background people arguing if my lead characters were arguing or physically fighting, for example. Silly, I know, but at the same time, it's kind of just this really nice, like, basic poetry or artistic touch you can put that people are arguing in the background and we've got tension in our real life foreground. When Val consoles Doug after finding Larry's parked car, Doug mentions they would argue at times, but remained friends and good partners. So here we can add a level to Denzel's character and a nice melted cheese slice of writing. Denny is pacing back and forth, and on one side of the workstations, there is a low ceiling, and he is crouching over that way, and it shows that the frame is curved to show the actors coming to our perspective and staying in the picture rather than sit in a spinning chair or cut off and off, which could slow down the action. And I'm trying to say that Denny, being the director, is walking from one side of the workstation room to the other, and a part of that is where these folks are sitting at desks, and above their desks can be this like low ceiling. I think the wires are being held there, plus it's just, artistic set decoration. But Denny is kind of a tall guy. I'm sure he's 6 foot as an actor, but he'll walk from one side of the room to the other, but it's like they've curved it. So again, they're staging it for screen, and they do it so well in an ingenious way that he's kind of like crouching, but he never leaves the frame. The lights go out in the tri-state area. Whoops, do we blame Canada? We get more to the structure of this time travel tool. Shanti shows us a river with a line, and making a change to the river branches out and the water continues flowing. That's life. And we are using the Mississippi. It is hypothesized by Shanti that the current stream will cease to exist, and in theory, they will continue to exist, and in fact, would forget they met Doug and all of this if, when they succeed, that one stream would just continue, the life or death of a friend if they're saved, for example. Following Larry's car in amber cam footage, they also keep up with their suspect, who is arriving at the Bronco, down a catwalk of amber rain, and ISO Algiers Pier at 4 a.m., I guess. A facial scan is processing recognition, and he looks directly at a cam. They just have a random camera that's watching our suspect walk, and because it's just so anonymous, he's just walking a straight line like a catwalk. Oh, a catwalk. A catwalk, yeah, you're a sexy little suspect walking in the rain. A catwalk. You're on a catwalk, yeah, you're just a sexy little suspect walking in the pouring rain. Catwalk. Catwalk, yeah. But it's just this camera's got him, and it's like, dude, it's 4 a.m., I guess, and then he, I don't know, I guess because he could be looking down at the gravel at his feet, and the camera's kind of looking up at him. We just get a shot of his face, and he's just a general guy. It's not like it's Michael Keaton or somebody we know. Larry takes action on the sus in the Bronco, and somehow he is very unclear. Larry is rapidly shot out by the guy inside the Bronco through the door. And Larry, with the catwalk happening, Larry is in the vicinity, And I think he's just parked his car. But it's like we're kind of finding this out, and at the same time, Larry is finding out in his own time span that this guy is a suspect. I should ask him to freeze, and the authorities can get here. But instead, this guy, of course, is just all balls, all gusto, and just shoots out his own door. It's unclear because it's pouring, and it's just like a digital feed. Doug is watching along with the team, and they all have long faces. Larry is thrown into the water. Like we basically watched someone die, and of course, Doug was just like, wait, I just found his car. I thought he was parked here. No, he is unclear on what happened. They need to keep track of the suspect as he drives out of the location. He is driving rapidly out of range. Quick-thinking Doug volunteers to wear the headgear I mentioned earlier and control the goggle rig. Gunner can't do it. He's controlling the workstation. This is the goggles and the backpack I mentioned earlier. Gunner's got these controls, the joystick, and this is definitely such an important project. They need total control. So Doug is in a large standard Hummer with a goggle setup and many other Ghostbusters equipment. Can anyone argue with that? I mean, this is high sophisticated, but so is Egon. Doug is rapidly on the phone with the team. He makes a few efforts to drive and switch on the goggle rig and place it on his head. He now is seeing what happened 4 days ago, although he is driving also in a reality. So cars are in front of him, but at 4 a.m., 4 days ago, the streets are empty, except for their suspect. Doug says it's trippy and difficult for him to drive, but the sooner he connects, the sooner the team will be able to direct or navigate. He whips the Hummer around, and because they are going the opposite direction of the suspect, which it takes them a minute to get back on his track, and before that, he has whipped the Hummer around, facing the suspect, stopped on the freeway. There's this dramatic confrontation, but then he maneuvers to follow this guy, I think. The suspect stares right at him, and Doug stares right back. In a square of what we see in front of us is a semi-truck sliding to a stop with its cargo side sliding also. So yeah, like he followed him for a while, and then there was a dramatic spin around where the suspect is looking right at Denzel at 4 a.m., but in reality, Denzel is sitting on a busy road, and us as an audience is now seeing this semi-truck sliding to a stop, coming straight for Doug and his Hummer. He takes the impact and never flips. The Hummer with Doug inside is pushed to the side of the speedway. The goggles may have been damaged, but are still working. Doug rotates the goggles to look through him and his seat and gets turned around and again follows the suspect. So I'm away from the screen, and I thought I'd be able to describe this, but it is helpful when the screen is right there, that he's driving with his mind knowing that he's changed the direction, and it's just sending him what's happening through his space and time. He gets turned around and again follows the suspect, leading to the bayou, a rural house location surrounded by rough trees and bushes, with a fence that Doug is matching up with the goggles. We see the suspect enter the driveway. Denzel packs himself with an enormous vest filled with batteries and wires. It is 5th grade electric experiment level. I think Raleigh Taylor from FX has better tech. But Doug hustles to get ready to continue busting ghosts. A ghost that ghosts other people. A lotta other people. He proceeds with phone up his face like a walkie-talkie, the helmet with goggles facing forward, down like a steady cam at an NBA game or a trick-or-treat jack-o'-lantern. His vest is on with tech wires protruding behind him outward as if he is a tech turtle. He sees a bombed out house with an ambulance jammed into the structure from our side, it seems. Our team is confirming that they are seeing the house still upright and intact, with the suspect, who now has been identified by the snow white cloud. His name is Carol. And he is unloading a person who is Larry. And I didn't see him put Larry in the Bronco. I apologize. I saw him roll Larry, and I must have looked away, but something about it made me think he was rolling him off into the water. But Larry got packed away in the Bronco, and now Larry is being pulled out of the Bronco. Larry is shot dead and is going to be burned up. And Doug is standing where this charred residue is on the concrete in front of him because he's in real time. I think he goes inside the house, or the spot has another clue. He finds Claire's missing earring. And I might have missed that. Did I make mention that there was an earring on one of her ears and not on both of her ears? Please write in with your best Claire's missing earrings joke in the comments. Trigger warnings, because this movie gets dark before it's over. Yeah, it's PG-13, but this is where I start to say it should be rated R. Trigger warning, R-rated trigger warning. That scene concludes in flames, and the team is visibly upset. It's daylight. A proper investigative team is processing the house now, in white Tyvek suits. Doug is asked if he wants a mask. He's good. And we are no longer streaming the suspect, I guess. Doug is talking to the workstation and mentions where our status is with the case, including time travel. The suspect has Larry's blood in bullet holes, so he needs Claire's truck. By changing one thing, we didn't change anything. Val, who has been in Couch Potato, seated acting most of all of these scenes we've been running through. Denny has been shuffling around, keeping us distracted from his talent, I guess. Well, he is Marlon Brandoing in this frame. We get some instant processing of the suspect, and I guess that was an abandoned bar pool hall. He is tracked down to his house, and receipts tracked to what? A tackle shop that leases fan boats? Because he gets a criminal Joe Dirt scene racing a fan boat until he is standing up and apprehended peacefully. Yeah, he's like flying down in a fan boat, and there's all these Tony Scott federal marshals coming after him. And it's tough to write about that because it sounds like Denzel catches him in the act. No, they just are able to put two and two together. Denzel tracks this guy to this abandoned, place. He can see that someone was murdered there, the someones that they're tracking. So then they just get tracked on who has ownership of this building, and then they go to his actual. Oh, there's actual receipts in this building. They track down what he's purchased. So it's just another instant process, but it's hard to write because it almost sounds like I missed a celebration. No, we just we solve some clues, and then we process those clues. And it ended in a fan boat chase, almost like he's Joe Dirt. And again, I'm desperate to highlight that this dude was apprehended peacefully. He mass murdered 500 some people, innocent people. Beep beep, honk honk, ring ring, siren. The actor playing Carol does a fine job and will be face to face with Denzel in these next shots. But he is a problematic personality, and unfortunately, I would like to skip. He does get a bunch of smoke going from his cigarette, and it's funny to have two characters working with cigarettes in the same movie. He is attacking the government, and Doug is a good listener. Doug walks, Doug walks, Doug walks, Doug walks, casually talks. Doug walks, casually talks. Doug walks to a grumpy helicopter-surrounded McCready, who now turns villain because he's shutting down the operation. Claire is not concerned. She's dead. Doug encourages, we can save her. McCready rejects. You went to her funeral 4 days ago. What's wrong with you? You know, second time around here, that's wild that McCready says that because, you know, he's invested into this operation. He was committed to it. They think it's all wrapped up now, and he's just trying to just basically save one victim. But that victim had personal connection to the suspect. So that's interesting. That's sort of the smart side of this movie, why it excels with a maker like Tony Scott taking control of this movie, is that that's a smart angle on top of location and really good ingredients involved. Denzel Washington, PaulaPatton, even Greenwood, but he's turned villain now and he's walking away back to his government cars or whatever. It's a really like windy scene, you know, like they're surrounded by helicopters, and Val is there to add, I'm in the business of closure. And Doug is there to facilitate closure. Doug is focused on caring about Claire, and those two have another bonding moment where they're coming together, a good pair, because Claire needs this to happen, which I think Denzel heads back to her residence looking for evidence. He looks again to the fridge. You can save her. A church flyer sparks action. He knocks over a bike running out of her place. We're at 1 hour and 24 minutes. He calls Denny at the boxed up workstation. Val is saying his goodbyes and recognizes it's Doug calling. You know what I have to do. The room acknowledges. Val says, do me a favor. Turn the lights off when you're done. And walks out. So we've got Val's blessing to do this, which is dope. Thank you, Val, with the craziest name, Prazyware, something like that. Crazy last name. Doug Denzel is sitting at the box that once held the paper note of warning. So remember that note we sent? So we go back into that project again, head on, and it's Doug who's sitting on this sort of pedestal utility table that would go into this large, almost like a large x-ray machine or something. Similarities to the machine Luke Wilson uses in Idiocracy to get that like barcode tattoo, and he mistakenly says like, no, that's not me, and he becomes like, say your last name, no, it's not me. Anyway, a huge machine. And Doug is sitting in a box that once held the paper note of warning. He had to get rid of his gun and watch and pants. Less mass for this to transport him, the fly almost, to the past. And I guess he's going to warn Claire? I guess he's going to warn Claire or to help his younger self. God willing, Doug says, we will see him yesterday. Lights go out everywhere. Doug's face is smeared in slow motion. They're using like the digital effects of the time, which these are not dazzling, but almost like a straight-to-video a movie with effect. It's like, I get it. We get the effect. He's going back in time to bust ghosts. And I'll be damned if you argue me away from that. TMCMS shouts out. If you think this is a Ghostbuster side project, let me know. Surgeons stop what they are doing with the lights out, but when they come back on, Doug is electrically convulsing on a gurney as if he just appeared. The doctors run over, and written in whiteout or whatever on his belly, on Denzel Washington's belly, as Doug, someone has written, revive him. And he, to us and the surgeons, he did just appear in the hallway at this hospital. They do CPR, etc. He wants to go meet with Claire to warn her. Do you get feelings of Alice at the end of Don't Worry Darling? Her choosing her own adventure and leaving to kill Bill? Do you know what I mean? If you saw those three movies where it's like not only what Kiddo is doing in Kill Bill in her hospital wake up, but more focused on I'm getting the feelings of Alice when she's waking up and Don't Worry Darling, no spoiler, and she's got her own choose your own adventure. Yes, it's exactly that, because Doug wakes up, unplugs. The morning weather is on TV confirming an early start time for Agent Doug, and that it is Fat Tuesday, Groundhog Day for Mardi Gras. Doug gets a leftover shoes and outfit. It's like from the guy next door or like another patient next to him. He grabs a plant and he sees two ambulance drivers sitting with lunch. And with their gun to one side of them, Doug easily distracts and grabs the gun. He says, "Water the plant, I'm taking the ambulance." It's a joyride. He heads directly to the abandoned building where the suspect is working on killing Claire. She has a satchel over her head and seems knocked out. Splashed gasoline all over her. Foul. Shout out to the stunt person taking a chair fall to the elbow. It's a very well framed shot. It's brutal. Doug has raced directly there. A horn goes off and has rammed the side of this hell shop and makes enough of a distraction. The sus stops what he's doing and exits for a villain angle. Doug exits the ambulance and gets his bearings. He takes shots from Carol, that's the suspect, and ducks under rolling flames that was started from gas tanks set up to explode. One shot and the whole place went up. And Carol was already messing with explosive material inside the building, where Doug has seized Claire from the fiery blaze. He dove with her in his arms to the dirt surrounding the building. I guess Carol left in his tainted truck, which may have been ID'd as a Blazer. Sorry, I've been all around on what those trucks are. Blazer or Bronco. There's two of them. Doug and Claire follow suit in their Bronco, I guess. See? The ambulance is inside the house, smashed through the side of the house. Doug is able to undo Claire's bindings, just like inside the building, she is going through shock. And she is fighting Doug. And she is doing this very well. It's striking and breathtaking. I mean, I'm retelling what you see on the screen, but what you see is really brutal. Claire has gone through a lot. He gets her to relax, to his care just for the moment. They embrace. You're safe. Claire is visibly traumatized. And maybe to lighten it up a little bit with scientific fact, they say lifeguards endanger themselves if they don't approach, for example, a drowning victim, because the person, if they approach possibly from the front of this person wants to use anything to float and will start flailing and almost punching to grab on, and then in this example, drown the lifeguard in theory, because the person is grabbing onto them rather than the professional lifeguard holding on them, securing them for safety. Anyway, so I'm just explaining some trauma Claire is going through, and of course, it's much more complicated than just drowning, but I'm just mentioning what you might see on screen. Doug did not know there would be keys in the truck. Time is crucial. Doug is shot in his shoulder, and he is bleeding. He is also driving. If he doesn't make it to the ferry in time, he doesn't make it. She won't make it. He can't say it. No time for police. He can drop her off at her place and patch himself up. Back at her place, the cat doesn't like strangers, but is taking to Doug because Doug has already seen this cat, right? It's very funny. I am amused by this cat's reaction to Doug. I really am. Doug gets into the medical supplies. He's not taking direction from Claire, and Claire is subtly noticing this. he rearranges magnet letters on her fridge to say, "You can save her." She doesn't notice that. But him just kind of like going through the drawers and seeing the cat even, he grabs a clock to look at and begins to clean his injury. Claire is holding on emotionally and pops back in, wearing a warm colored dress, and Doug stops her to switch dresses. Trust me, she's suspicious at this moment, and that is interesting. And I gotta tell you, does anybody else watch a movie and if they see something, I hope you're gravitating to what I'm gravitating in this moment where it's like, is he mentioning like, wear a different dress because I found you in your victim timeline in this colored dress. So he's got a moment to what? Tell her, change the dress, and possibly we're on our way to changing the whole thing. But I find it just, I don't know. It made me think a lot. That's not the only thought I had, but now the movie has gone on. And I'm sitting, if you were to sit in the theater or in your home theater or your home box office, I mean, are you sitting there like daydreaming now and you've missed, 13 minutes of the movie? Because this moment, it happened to me and I had to back up a little bit. He's rearranged magnets letters on the fridge to say, "You can save her." Claire is holding on emotionally. She pops back in. Doug stops her to switch dresses. Trust me, she's suspicious, and she pops back in, bringing out a gun. PaulaPatton has a really good revved engine. She is intensely questioning Doug as he stands with his shirt off, pleading his sincerity. In this, Claire calls his office, and now he is on the floor in DENZEL pose, which is a really healthy pose, and we should all do it from time to time. Mix it in your yoga routine, okay? DENZEL pose. New Orleans ATF Agent Donnelly, one of our greatest buddies in this movie, is handed a fresh sandwich and fries. And again, I kind of daydreamed on that. I was like, wow, this guy's just handed lunch. What an incredible job. And takes a call from Claire. Oh my goodness. She asks him to describe Agent Doug. And this is what was mumbled to Doug from his office partner, Donnelly, at the beginning of the movie. She asked about your description. I gave her 2 of the 3. And Doug's pal takes her info along with her number on what's left over of a scratched piece of candy wrapper as Donnelly eats a sandwich? I mean, this is crazy. His desk is covered in scraps. Dennis Nedry, and perhaps another job at an inept coverage of support in the New Orleans public services. I've been trying to make these notes where I do think that what they're trying to do with some of the colorful characters here is because it was a part of the criticism of the national tragedy, which was Katrina there at this time, was that they, not only New Orleans, but federally, people dropped the ball. Who are these people? Just people at desks, sloppy people at sloppy desks. So I think that's a part of everything, even though Don Lee's an okay guy. It's like, he's an okay guy, but look at his organization skills or the archaicness of their resources. It's not like he's got a MacBook sitting on that desk. He's got all these scraps of paper and stuff. What, they can't even afford Post-it notes? Where's the coffee in this damn place? Doug would say. Dennis Nedry here, though, gives us deja vu, because we are back to the beginning with Doug's adventures, helping Claire. What if you had to tell someone the most important thing in the world, but you weren't sure they would believe you? That's a quote from Agent Doug. We're at 1 hour and 40 minutes. He gives her the info simply, and they move into a flirtatious Top Gun lit scene of putting tape on Doug's bandage. Because with all that said, she did believe him, and I think Doug's buddy was, he is a police officer at an office and was a kind person taking her info. And I guess Doug was out of the office, so she's believing him. There are some more twists coming, and I began to be confused, but I had noticed some things that are brought up here. I thought Doug would be more aware, like seeing that he's throwing bandages in her wastebasket, and he's used water, and he put a glass of water on her mantle, because he was at this crime scene, and he even got this side note from an investigator at the crime scene when he was double checking. So it's like, I don't know, there's a lot going on in his day, there's a lot going on in his mind, but he doesn't ring a bell that he's like, oh, I'm throwing bloody bandages. I don't know, all these little things. He is just cavalier going throughout his moment, but he does care about Claire. So Justin, it might not be all that serious. He is focused on getting Claire, in and out of everything safely, in and out of the scenario safely. And I mentioned at her crime scene because of deja vu time travel we are currently in. So Doug is looking confused at these things right now, and Claire is answering the machine. It's a message from her friend Beth, and Doug suggests her letting Beth leave the message, and Claire picks up. Beth, is this a joke? And we hear this fading out strategically, and no one stops to make a note, except for me, Justin. We are back on the way to Algiers Pier. Claire is with Doug, and Doug says, if nothing else, I will defuse the bomb. And I guess he was hoping the tourist would give up on his plan, and after seeing his glass on the mantle, he is now on the way to the pier with Claire. And I'm telling you, I think he sees these things, but I don't know. It's just the details. A replay of the release of the sailors from the buses. At the beginning, they apply a yellow filter and slow motion cut the whole thing. Overhead copter shots. And Claire spots her truck on the ferry. And Doug clocks Carol. So it's kind of sweet. Doug and Claire kind of look cute together, and they're at this ferry. They've had a night. Claire is feeling it. She's almost like dressed in sweatpants. I mean, she's not, but it's like one of those daytime, like just running an errand. But she's laying back, I guess, on the pier, and Doug has made it onto the ferry. So she's sort of giving us a view of like the whole pier and ferry, and Doug is sort of like taking us directly to the sort of parking garage. But it's not really a parking garage, it's a parking area. It's a breezy shot, so Claire can see her truck. Claire is now a believer. She heads for assistance from officers on the boardwalk area. Even if she's arrested, she will be safe. We are getting the pair of Doug and Claire framed for us in a really action-adventure, romantic embraces from corner to corner here. As they try to lay low along the walkway, Doug embraces Claire, so they are so handsome together, and he kisses her. Be careful. This guy is now getting onto a motorbike, and now is the time to gripe again about murderers being so organized that they can own a home, a few autos, a motorcycle, leasing a fan boat, and for the sake of Annie and Max from Game Night 2018, Carol probably has 2 kids. Okay, anyways, he's getting on his bike and clocks the other truck that Doug parked there and Claire and Doug got out of. He makes his way, stopping the doors momentarily, back onto the ferry. Could you believe this? And Claire watches this. I didn't see her notify authorities, but Doug has been told to leave the car parking area. We're at 2 different places, and almost like just consecutive linear action is taking place here. Claire ran back to the ferry herself, full sprint, and jumps. Okay, I took a screenshot of this. It's incredible. We know PaulaPatton has a stunt actor with us, but I do suggest you slowing down to watch this scene. Claire ran back to the ferry herself, full sprint, and jumps. Similar to Wesley Snipes' subway track jump in 1995's Money Train, or Larry's jump onto the Hampton Isle Ferry in Bernie's. It's incredible. The stunt actor Diane R. Lupo and or Anita Hart are my best guess for the work covering PaulaPatton's character. I'm sure someone made the jump for her. Applause. Continuing to see the replay of the ferry pulling out like we saw at the beginning and several times in between. We are still seeing that this ferry is just departing this pier, and we see a kid loses their doll into the early Baywater backwash. Claire has made her way to the parked cars, and we have lost motives for all characters. I think we are at complete mission. We are replaying joyful and sleepy family members on board. A yawn makes me sleepy. This is like terrible energy happening as we replay. I don't know. I don't like all these recuts of what people were doing on the ferry. It's really, I don't know, it's kind of hack. It's almost like a television movie.
But I'm envisioning scenes from the movie Minority Report 2002. And I think there's just, in that movie, there's always these public folks walking about, and we're trying to find out who we're suspect of. And also Tom Cruise's journey in that movie is he's sort of suspicious of the public as he walks through it at times.
Continuing, Carol, our suspect, pulls a gun on Claire. Say that 3 times fast.
Carol, our suspect, pulls a gun
Carol,
on Claire.
our suspect, pulls a gun on Claire. Carol, our suspect, pulls a gun.
This trio of wandering passengers is not feeling natural because Doug was shooed away at first. Claire runs, jumps, and gets to hang around in the captain's lounge, the valet's chalets, the parking lot attendant's pickleball courts, and then Carol shows up, and another round-faced security officer cautions not to be on the parking deck. I mean, there's like 70 security officers shooing away 6 people, and they all just leave the parking lot. Shoo shoo. Okay, now I'm gonna leave also. Like, give me a break. Doug is watching from his penalty box. He has been dressed like Martin Riggs from the first Lethal Weapon. Carol blasts security guards and has left the initial parking area. Doug takes this chance to run along the parked cars to the Bronco. Sailors have been alarmed and run along the boat to see more. Armed military run along a stairwell with sailors trailing. Just everybody's running along. Sailors are trailing as Carol may have shot them through the door. He is shooting a bunch and seems to have brought a bunch of guns from his motorbike, which I didn't think he was that stocked while riding that bike. And at some point, Carol wrapped Claire's mouth with the tape. Okay, so I don't know how far we would go around to our start again, but Claire gets her tape. And this is fresh because the wide gap for this criminal seems criminal. Agent Doug hasn't slept in order to get this close, and never this far. Claire is taped. I'm freaking. Carol is shaped like Michael Bay's Turtles, with full ammo, blasting security, and starting car fires. Doug can see Claire clearly and motions to her, wiggle the ignition. She turns the car on. Carol is distracted. He may have been making his way back to his Bronco. Doug has his ankles in sight, as no body shots have taken Carol down. I am shouting, blast his ankles. Take him out, as the sailors run shouting, shoot his ankles, Doug. The sailors are yelling that. Doug says, Satan reasons like a man, while God thinks of eternity. Wow, those are strong words and will account for so much going on this side of the hemisphere. Divine intervention here, buddy, Doug says. Doug distracts him with patriot talk, human sacrifices for foolish righteousness, and Claire is in gear, and she drives into Carol. He shoots because he's a monster, and Agent Doug shoots him because Carol is a monster. The bomb is still intact. We cannot leave the theater. This one is going to the edge. Bronco is unlocked. Claire is untaped. Doug hits the radio. Minutes before his explosion estimate, the DJ takes us to 1968 with the Beach Boys, and we get some of their tune while Doug says, hit the gas! and he has the Bronco in reverse. He smashes into the cars behind, and that's when more security is there surrounding the car and want them to put their hands in the air. Doug, if we get out now, everybody dies. He pulls out of park again, hit it, smashes. I am laughing hysterically. This is like amazing. I'm like loving the Doug and Claire partnership and that they are like taking care of business together. Claire's brain must be mush. I mean, she has been devastated for the last 48 hours. Doug has, like I said it, he has not slept. He is focused on this. This is everything. He knows what's at stake. I mean, and they are like pushing the gas on American, car inside of a ferry. Oh, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Tires squeal and we head in reverse again. Creative. This is actually aggressively messy and way less sci-fi. They just keep pummeling into the cars alongside the path they're in, heading towards a far end of the ferry. A couple poofs of explosion just make me think they are exploding. The Bronco is exploding. But no, it's just parked cars. It's just parked cars. One poots them out to the bay. The truck just spins and they hit the water hard. Inside the truck is a camera. It has taken a cycle of officers' shots and now is knee deep in Mississippi's runoff. So yeah, we just see that they think that they are suspects, so their Bronco is being shot at, and there is a camera inside this car taking that action. The car has run off in front of the ferry boat, so as they are sinking, Doug disconnects the car wheel to get Claire free. The water is filling, I think because she was like handcuffed to the wheel or something. I know that Carol came back and like did so much more to Claire too. I'm thinking about her journey as a whole, but it's like in less than 15 minutes, this dickhead Carol came back, taped her up, taped her to the wheel of a car. It's like she just can't win. She just can't get out of this situation if it's not for Doug right now. And I say that as celebrating the movie for the popcorn eating movie it is. Weighing in on a bigger issue here. I like Doug and I like Claire as characters. Pretty action-packed here. Doug disconnects the car wheel to get Claire free. The water is filling. The ferry runs over the Bronco because remember it like jumped out in front of the ferry and started sinking. So this massive boat is going over it. What a car. What a pair of characters. Claire gets free out of the side window past the ferry's motor blades. You see all this. It's wonderfully shot or digitally made up. I don't know what's going on there. Doug is stuck in the Bronco. I don't know why he is unable to leave from where Claire left. I even saw them kicking at the windows, but he's stuck. The Bronco is spinning like a crocodile, and I'm sure that's not helping. Claire is above the water, breathing. Doug is in the Bronco, and they spend a ton of money to have an underwater explosion with Denzel staring back at us inside the Bronco near the bomb timer. I'm devastated. Clearly, I'm devastated. Claire is safe inside a Coastal Guard boat. She's crying. Smoke is going off everywhere. I think I have smoke in my eyes. Seamen are everywhere. Officers are connecting families, and people are leaving the area. And let's see. 4 days ago, Doug was investigating a ferry bombing an hour after it happened. That Doug, after involving himself in finding out more, propels himself into the past to help Claire. Doug helps, which would cause the tragedy to never happen. And that tragedy investigating Doug has exploded away from others safely. So Doug from the present, which was the past, is waking up to go to work to argue with his partner Larry about hunches. Agent Doug exists. 11 a.m. Tuesday, 4 days before ValKilmer leaves the keys to the Ghostbuster time machine. Claire exists. She's being consoled by a police lieutenant number 2, Gary Grubbs, the actor, an extensive timeline of work. And someone is coming to offer support. Hold tight momentarily. Investigator Agent Doug shows up to facilitate closure as Val once told us. Claire and Doug meet. Doug asks, "Have we met?" Claire says, "Yeah." Smoke is still in my eyes. With Doug and Claire get into an official car. I think Doug tells her, "Look, there's another me that may be ultimately investigating after we get cleared up at the ferry or with this suspect during their cleanup at Claire's residence, because during their bonding in Dustlight, there is a jump with them hitting the road, and I think they gain some intimacy as a pair, which includes communication. They end with a sandy, beachy sheen of speed, but with less road rash and more patriotic scorn trauma, which I know I've experienced in the past 8 to 10 years, or months. I am again going to full circle us. We are in a car. Claire says she's alright, which she is, but it's okay to not be okay. She's got a good new buddy, Agent Doug, and he turns on the radio, and we hear Beach Boys tune, "Don't Worry Baby." Don't worry, baby, don't worry, baby, don't worry, baby. Don't worry, baby. Don't worry, baby.
Doug.
Claire says, "What if you had to tell someone the most important thing in the world, but you weren't sure they would believe you?" Doug responds, "I'd try," and almost rests on a feeling of deja vu. Nah. PaulaPatton gives us a Denzel smile wipe, and we drive off, a still of random Doug in the car driving. And the film is dedicated to the enduring spirit of the people of New Orleans. I will definitely let that spirit shine. I enjoy this movie. I had a lot of fun the first time I watched it, and again, it had escaped my view for many years, and it holds up for a good movie watch. I also want to note our notable pairs and couples we have followed on TMCMS podcast. Are you ready for some lists? How about Alice and her choices from Don't Worry Darling, Kenny and Vanessa from Corvette Summer, Regina and Hector from Night of the Comet, Sam and DMK from Night of the Comet, Mona Lisa and Vinny from My Cousin Vinny, Tammy and the Teenage T-Rex, Susan and the French Alps from Just the Way You Are, Joanne Valinari and Mac from Tequila Sunrise, Annie and Max from Game Night, and Claire and Doug from Deja Vu. Follow, like, and smash the comment button. Hashtag TMCMS Podcast. The Movie Club Movies. tpublic.com/user/TMCMS for merch. YouTube, Letterboxd, Instagram, Threads, and X. Thanks for listening to the podcast, and as always, I do suggest smash that reply button, smash that subscribe button, smash that follow button, smash a message to us. You can find us anywhere you catch pod, as well as Letterboxd at hashtag TMCMS, the Movie Club Movies Podcast. Also, YouTube, hashtag TMCMS, the Movie Club Movies Podcast. Be sure to sign up for a Letterboxd account yourself if you don't already have one. If you enjoy following along with movies, or while you watch movies, you also enjoy looking up the makers and production, you will enjoy Letterboxd. And please, follow us there for the podcast choices and suggestions.
Please be kind. Please rewind.
Dun, 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 dun.